So, Mike, firstly, another semi-final to look forward to with Racing. You yourself, this must be why you coach, and being a coaching ticket, you must really enjoy these games.
Yeah, absolutely. Another semi-final of Champions Cup. It's where you want to be. Obviously, we're coming up against a very formidable side in La Rochelle that we're very used to. We play against them quite regularly, obviously in the league, so there's a lot of familiarity there. And look, there's huge excitement around the club. I think, look, I came into the club about 3 years ago now, and it was the one thing I noticed when I came to Champions Cup, just the excitement, the desire and the want. I could see it the weeks of Champions Cup, everything was notched up, and everything was just the excitement and the buzz around the club, and that's no different to the last 2 weeks. And obviously, the deeper you go into the competition, there's more pressure. But I suppose, look, the boys have been here a good few times. We've lost 3 finals over the last number of years. We lost a final only a year and a half ago. So there's a huge hunger there. But look, we know how much of a task it will be on Sunday, as I said, against a very well coached and very well drilled La Rochelle side.
Yeah, you obviously know, as you say, La Rochelle so well. You played them a couple of times. The last one, they beat you 19-0, if I'm correct. But they're pretty formidable, and they don't have too many weaknesses, do they?
No, absolutely not. They, even statistically, you look at them in the top 14, they're the best best defence, and they're in the top, I think, 3 in attacks. So yeah, they're a very hard team to break down. They've obviously a very, very strong, powerful pack of forwards as well. So it's a huge challenge without saying. And look, as I said, we do play them quite regularly. We lost in a semi-final, almost this time last year in the top 14. And look, yeah, the thing is we're really looking forward to it, but we realise, I suppose, how much of a challenge it will be. And it's actually an interesting one as well, just getting through the Sale game last week, which took a lot of effort. I think the scoreline was quite heavy in the end, but it took a while and it took a lot to break them down, especially in the first half, just the way they defend. They've really, really high line speed, and they get high up on the edges, and La Rochelle defend the very, very same way, so that's maybe not a bad thing for us, knowing that going in this week, that there will be a lot of similarities in terms of how we need to break them down.
You touched on the first question. Racing have lost 3 finals. One of them you were involved in. I spoke to Finn last week. He said Heineken Cup isn't talked about, but everyone just knows in the club this is the one they want to win. Is it just that obvious that this is the big one, and just to get over the line is massive for you guys?
Yeah, I think so, to be honest. There's a huge chunk of the players that we have at the moment that have lost those 3 finals. When Laurie, our back row's actually lost 4, he lost one with the Ritz a number of years back. So there is, I agree with Finn, there wouldn't be a huge amount said about it, but you can just feel it around the place when it comes to Champions Cup week. And it's one thing I know our president, Jackie Lorenzetti, it's a trophy he wants to get his hands on for sure. Being that close, even look at the game a year and a half ago against Exeter. We lost by a score in the end, a very, very tight game. It was a cruel defeat and a third defeat after that. But, I have to say, in terms of players, just their ability and their hunger when the Champions Cup comes back. Because when you lose 3 finals, that can affect you a lot. But they just seem to have this huge hunger, which is great from a coaching point of view.
Yeah, it seems to be. Give us your insight, your relationship with Finn Russell. I can tell last week he's a big fan of yours, Mike. What's he like to work with, day in, day out? But what is it like to work with him? And as a person as well, Mike, how much do you feel you have tried to develop his game as well?
Yeah, first of all, he's a great guy to work with. He's a great fella. It's easy to work with him, as you can imagine. And I've often said it before. People look at Finn and things he does on the pitch, and sometimes you think he just is rocked up, but there's a lot of work that goes in behind. He's in terms of his scouting of oppositions, his scouting of individuals from a defensive point of view, where he looks for, I suppose, areas he can attack or areas he can go after. He's, as I say, he's not one of those tens that is massively vocal. He has his work done, so he's prepared himself. And as a 10, once he has that done, that has a huge advantage for us as a team, especially from an attacking point of view. But he's actually quite a good student of the game, and to work with, he's a pleasure to work with, and he's not actually, but he's good fun as well, and that's a big part of what we are over here as well. We enjoy each other's company as a group. We work hard. But I think we've got a good balance to it as well. And Finn I suppose, Finn drives that. He's an incredible talent, incredible rugby player. And I thoroughly enjoy working with him. Look, you're asking me about how he's improved. I think in terms of the framework I've put in place, I think it's something that suits him. And look, it's the players around him as well, that make him look good, and he makes them look good, So, yeah, overall, as I said, a pleasure to work with and coach.
Yeah, and you obviously have mentioned those frameworks, but when he's kicking crossfield kicks in inside zone 22, and there's risk there, Mike, do you say, the outcome is just what we have trained on all week, and if it works, great, and most of the time it does work, but as a coach, you just have to accept that it can go wrong. Like, for example, the intercept in the 2020 Heineken Cup final. Is that just disappointment, obviously, but these things happen whenever you play an attacking game plan?
Yeah, that's a good point. And go back to the final where there was an interception. We had previously, in around that area, we previously identified that there would be space. And if you look at that pass, it was ideally it would have been a little kick pass, but Finn was under a bit of pressure, so he threw it. And another half a foot that's over the top, and it's a 3-man overlap. And next thing, Finn Russell is a hero, and you win the Champions Cup. So I'm the type of coach that if we talk about something and we agree in it and it comes off or it doesn't come off, I'm not going to have a cut off the boys, because we've agreed on that. And we look at pictures, and we look at areas that we can attack. And a lot of the time it does come off for Finn. And as you alluded to, even the weekend, that the crossfield kick is quite risky. Absolutely, it is. But with his skill set, from his short kicking game to his long passing game, and his decision making, there's a lot of times it does work for us, and players read him as well. So within this group, so it's very much of look, if the players are happy to go with it, and we agree in it, we're on the same page and we go for it. And we win together, we lose together. That's the type of coach that I would be personally.
It's great to hear. A couple of young guys coming through, which I've seen a wee bit of, Nolan LeGarrett and Max Spring. Seems to be a good sort of young group coming through. Ross, I know you'll head off, but it seems the club seems to be in a pretty good place. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of talent generally in France at the moment. The game is obviously, it's becoming more and more popular over here. You can see it through the Six Nations in terms of the viewership and everything. The top 14s figures have all gone up. So the game is just, it's growing. Obviously, the 2023 World Cup is pushing that as well. The standards of game in the top 14 are a lot better, I suppose, in the last 3 or 4 years, ball and play, etc. So that has a knock-on effect to, I suppose, numbers, and there's a lot of numbers over here that play rugby. So eventually the talent will come through, and in terms of their academies and everything, it's in terms of the structures there, they're improving, they're getting better. And we're fortunate that 2 of those, I suppose, products have come through at the moment, even though they're only 19 and 20 years of age in Nolan and Max, but 2 wonderful talents. Nolan, as you can see, on top of his place kicking, he's electric as a 9. His basics are so good, and he's got a huge future in front of him. And likewise, Max, just a brilliant broken field runner. He's got incredible footwork. He's a smallish guy, but he gets himself out of problems or dark corners with his footwork, and he's got a very, very good kicking game on top of it. So there are 2. There's a couple more coming in behind them as well, in different positions. So here in Racing, and as I alluded to elsewhere as well, that the curve is just going up over here, and a lot of these younger boys as well, they're confident lads. They're 2 players that I suppose kind of suit the way we want to play as well, especially Nolan at 9, the tempo he could bring to the game. And they've 2 huge futures ahead of them.
Yeah, hopefully they do. And tell us a bit about you, Mike. I think it's in around 10 years in France. Grenoble, Oyonnax, Stade Francais. And obviously, you're coming home next year. But as your coaching career develops, do you feel more pressure, Mike, or how does it work as a coach?
I don't know, do I really, to be honest? Yeah, I've been over here 9 years. I did 4 with Grenoble, and I was starting off through Bernard Jackman. Fortunately, Birch opened the door for me to professional coaching effectively, because as we know in Ireland it's quite hard to break through, obviously for obvious reasons. There's limited numbers of teams, 5 including the Irish team, and in the 4 provinces. And in France alone, when you look at it, there's almost 40 professional teams from the top 14 to Pro D2, and then you've about another close on 10 elite Federal 1 teams. So there is opportunities. The issue is trying to get in here, and Bernard obviously got in through Andrew Farley back in the day in Grenoble, and then it led on to me he opened the door for me to get in. I think the thing, when I look back, it was a step-by-step coaching progression, in terms of I went in as a skills coach. So I wasn't doing videos. I had played in France for a year, so I had a bit of the language, not a huge amount, not enough to present or get my point across or my message across. So it gave me a bit of breathing space when I went in as a skills coach my first year, and then I became backs coach, and then eventually attack coach, and on to Oyonnax and Stade and Racing in the end, where I still am. So it's been a long enough 9 years, even though it went really quick, because the top 14, there's just games week in, week out. But if you were to ask me, would it be the way that I would, if I look back now, it's exactly how I wanted it to work out, in terms of just step by step, skills coach, backs coach, attack coach, because there's so much to learn. And obviously you're doing it in a different language, and you're presenting in a different language, and you're trying to, I suppose, build relationships with players in different languages. Most teams that I've been with, there's been 10, 12 different nationalities. So that's a challenge, but it's also a real positive as well, in terms of you've guys from, all over the world, different nationalities, different backgrounds, who look at the game and look at aspects of the game, or look at the attack a small bit different. And for me, that was a really good learning curve, in terms of I was able to just, I suppose, the little bits and pieces I took from different players over the years in Grenoble, in all the different clubs. And I suppose the areas and the technical or tactical parts that I felt suited how I wanted to coach, I kind of kept onto. And yeah, so it's been very enjoyable. It's been challenging, absolutely, especially in the first number of years, when in the likes of clubs like Grenoble and Oyonnax, you're losing there are teams that are promoted. So it's normal, you're losing 70-80% of your games. So you can imagine every away game, a lot of home games, you could be taking 30 points, 40 points. You're trying to look for positives. But as a coach, I embraced that, and I think it helped me an awful lot, because I saw what it was like to coach in those clubs, and it was a real challenge. And then when you come to Racing, it's a small bit different. Look, you've world-class players, and you come in and you look at it from the outside, you think there's probably going to be a lot of egos here, and it's going to be a hard job. But I couldn't speak highly enough of the group in Racing, and as I mentioned about Finn, about being a pleasure. It's a pleasure coaching these boys, and they're incredibly helpful. I'm quite an open guy and quite an open coach, so I like communication both ways. I leave them have input, and if it suits us, we go with it. If it doesn't, not everything will suit how I suppose, in terms of our profiles. If it doesn't suit us, we won't go with it. So that's kind of my philosophy on how I look at coaching.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophy, and seems a very good one anyway. Mike, from being, I suppose, far away, you have a job to do with Racing, so much excitement coming home, but do you understand, or do you sort of get the noise when back home they're like, geez, Mike's coming back, we can't wait? Must be a good thing to hear that as well.
Yeah. No, I've never heard a huge amount of it, to be honest with you, but yeah, look, there's an excitement, and I'm being honest about this. It's only over the last couple of weeks, obviously, that it's been confirmed or whatever, and we have been, taken 10 in terms of games, and obviously high-end games, quarterfinal of Champions Cup, semi-final. And it's probably a good thing. I actually haven't thought about it a huge amount, Obviously, previous to it, I did because I had a decision to make with myself and my family. But since then, I haven't. I've been just literally so busy in terms of preparing for games. But look, come the time, I'll be hugely excited to get back to Munster. It's my home club. To get back living at home, even for my kids and my wife and stuff. We have been away quite a number of years. I've 9 years as a coach and 2 as a player, so it's 11 years. 2 of my daughters were born here. So there's obviously a big attachment to France, but you know, home is home, and I'm looking forward to it. And I know the history of Munster and what it means to people at home. And look, even looking at last Saturday, the match against Toulouse, and the supporters and the buzz around the place, and the game itself created, I suppose, that buzz. But there is that excitement, absolutely, and there will be huge pressure. You're from there as well, so that brings its own pressures. But it's something, as I said, come the time when it comes around, I look forward to it. We're very driven here to win something, and Champions Cup is top of the pile, and that starts on Sunday against, as I said, a very well Ronan O'Gara, Donncha Ryan coached team.
Last two from me, Mike, because you've been brilliant with your time. If you don't mind me asking, the Munster job, how did it come about?
I got talking to Graham. He contacted me to see would I be interested in it. Had a good chat with him, and I know some people that know him and have worked with him and spoke, you know, really positively about him. And I could get that when I had a couple of conversations with him. You know, incredibly good guy, and that's first and foremost, is you want to work with good people. So it just materialised after that over a couple of weeks. I'd still another year here in contract. So I explained it to Mr. Jackie Lorenzetti and Lauren Travers, our director of rugby here, and they were very understandable about it. It took obviously a couple of weeks to organise everything, but that's kind of, I suppose, how it materialised just through my conversations with Graham, and how he spoke, and how he, I suppose, outlaid the plan, and I think, look, he did get me excited when he spoke about the younger players coming through there, and obviously there's very good experienced players there, so there's actually really, really good balance, and that excited me, and just the plan he had, and look, as I said, it's my home club, and I played there for 7-8 seasons, played all of my club rugby from Limerick, so it's a great honour to go back. But look, I know it's going to bring a lot of pressures, of course it is, but look, that's why we're coaches and we're in this game.
Finally, what would it mean to you, Mike, to leave Racing with a Heineken Cup on your CV?
A huge amount, and do you know what? Genuinely, not for me, for the players. I've seen them the third final that we lost, which was, I said, a year and a half ago. They were just completely gutted, and it's just that it's a memory I'll always have. I'd only lost one as a coach, but to see a lot of the majority of the group had lost 3, and to see how dejected they were, and also as well, Lauren Travers and Jackie Lorenzetti as well, because look, the setup he's provided for the club, and the players, everything is phenomenal. And as I said, he wants his hands in that trophy, and it would be a great way to leave the club. And as I said, for the players as well, I'd be so happy for them if it materialises that way. But it'll be very, very difficult, and that first, I suppose, that first goal starts on Sunday.
It does indeed, and all the best on Sunday, Mike. And I hope, for your sake and the club's sake, you do go on and win the trophy.
Thanks very much, George.